How do you prefer to eat chicken? With the beaks cut off?
Do we have to put that? No, just kidding.
A+ joke. Yeah, that's a perfect joke. Unimpeachable.
With the cheeks butt off? Wait, what?
Cheeks butt off.
The cheeks butt off.
There's layers to that. Think about it.
Yeah.
A lot of layers. A lot of layers of cheek. Got all that ass.
The chick? Oh, the cheek. Yep. Anyway.
No, I'm not giving it to you. I'm going to let you sit in that for a little bit.
Just... I'm going to cut this out.
No, everyone's going to sit in this and we're going to think about that joke.
What we did. We're going to think about what we did.
You're going to think about it. I'm Wilson Lai.
I'm Benjamin Yap.
I'm Eli Sands.
You're listening to Deep Cut.
On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with a personal favorite chosen by one of us.
We also discuss the director's life and career to bring context that helps us view their movies as they may want us to.
If you're enjoying the show, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts, as this will help others discover the show. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review for the show or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. You can keep up with us at Deep Cut Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd, and on TikTok at DeepCutPod_film. If you want to talk about this movie with us, please drop a message in our Discord server. For big fans of the show, we also have a Patreon. If you want to help support the show, you can subscribe for free to get some exclusive content that's only on Patreon. Click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find our Patreon, Discord, and all the other socials that we've mentioned here.
Before we begin our discussion on Kelly Reichardt's Meek's Cutoff, please be warned that we'll be going in depth and that this will be a spoiler-filled discussion. But if you don't mind the spoilers, please listen on ahead. We are very excited to begin a new mini-series, sub-series on the podcast, which we're calling Deep Cut Throwback, where we watch and talk about film from a director who we've already done a series on. In this case, Kelly Reichardt. This is unlike our Upkeep episodes where we're following new releases. So this week's episode was voted on by our Patreon supporters. If you want to have a say on our next throwback episode, whenever that happens, please do sign up for our Patreon. You can subscribe for free. And you can find a link to that at deepcutpod.com.
Guys, we really want you to go follow our Patreon. It's free. Just follow our Patreon. It's really free. If you go there, it's free. You can just subscribe for free and get free stuff.
And if there's more people on there, we can think about more fun stuff to do. That's the thing, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're incentivizing you to go there for free. It's really free. If you go there for free, it's going to be free.
It's also free.
It's super free.
Anyway, we previously covered Kelly Reichardt's Old Joy and First Cow on our 5th episode, which was actually the 4th director we ever covered on the podcast. So that was a long time ago. And also, we had an Upkeep episode with Reichardt with her most recent film, Showing Up, which was episode 70. And you can go find those episodes in our backlog. And they're great episodes. And for me, Reichardt was like the filmmaker that kind of started my post-college self-discovery of film again. Because I basically learned about Reichardt on my own and like dug into it on my own and thought about it on my own. So Reichardt was like, for some reason, the person that I started with. And she's a great person to start that with. And today we'll be talking about her 3rd film, I believe.
I think that's right.
Yeah, her 3rd film, which is Meek's Cutoff, which came out in 2010. And it's her first Western and not her last, interestingly enough, because First Cow also a Western. Very interesting, but I think very appropriate because I think she's one of our greatest American filmmakers still working today. And the Western is specifically a very American genre. So did both of you watch this for the first time?
Correct.
Awesome. So maybe
yes,
I'm going to do a summary and I'm going to ask you guys what you thought about the film. So Meek's Cutoff, honestly, a very simple film. It's loosely based on a true story about Stephen Meek, who is a famous frontiersman who would lead people on the Oregon Trail to find new land to settle in. So it's 1845, and a group of settlers are following Stephen Meek through the Oregon Trail, and they are lost. And so slowly they stop believing in Meek, and there's distress in the air. And through this fortnight-long journey, they meet a Native American, and stuff just happens. And most of this film really is just about life on the trail and what they have to do and how they feel. And that's about it. It is, I think, one of Reichardt's most slow cinema films. I think that's an interesting touchstone for thinking about this film, because I don't always think of Reichardt as a slow cinema filmmaker. But I think for this one, it feels the most apparent, at least. So both of you have watched this for the first time. Maybe just tell me what you think and feel about this film.
After you, Wilson.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's a masterpiece. I was not expecting this because, well, I didn't know what to expect. But I think Kelly Reichardt is a filmmaker that, once again, I feel like the more features that you have under your belt, the more you sort of get it. You get what she's trying to do, and the films work for you more. And this film, I think, is so well made and so well paced. I think Christopher Blovelt, the cinematographer, this is some of his most beautiful work that I've seen on screen. We were talking on the first episode that we did on Kelly Reichardt, and I remember, Ben, you said something about Reichardt's cinema is a cinema of subtlety, and this is a perfect example of it, where you spend the whole film trying to learn more about these characters and the relationship to one another. And by trying to dig deeper, you sort of uncover these tensions between the men and Meek, their guide, the wives, and their husbands. And when you throw in the Native American character, it sort of increases this tension, and everyone's thirsty, and it's overall not a great time for these people. But also, what lies underneath that is something that will remain so true to America in the years to come, which is this sort of white superiority these people have, and their belief that the land is theirs to take and theirs to thrive in. And that rings true throughout. And it's a message that is delivered very softly, but ends up resonating much further on after finishing the film. And that's also why I really loved it. And I think Michelle Williams, who plays Emily, a main character in the briefest of views, but I think she gives a really fantastic performance here. There's so much behind the eyes, so much anger, so much anguish, so much frustration, but also wanting maybe a connection, maybe with this Native American character. It just gave me so much to think about. And I'm just wondering if I was paying attention to the other Kelly Reichardt films in this way, would I have left them feeling as satisfied as I have felt after watching this movie?
You didn't feel satisfied by some of her other work?
I did feel satisfied, but I just didn't feel like they continued to sit with me as much as this movie has. And maybe there's just more left unanswered here that makes it really work.
Like, it's more satisfying because it's actually less narratively satisfying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ends on a major question mark. And this is a movie for me that really does hinge on its ending. I watched it and was, enjoying it enough, but definitely a little bit like fidgety and antsy. And then that ending happens, and it again, it is a question mark, and it sort of threw me a bit. And I was like, wait, I'm missing something here. I went and I looked up Meek's Cutoff, Reichardt, Raymond interview. And I found this one that they did with the Sundance Institute, I believe, where Raymond, the writer, John Raymond, talks about how he started looking into Stephen Meek after he had to name a golf course in the area around where the party winds up. So this idea that it's a foregone conclusion that the party will be okay, that they will wind up taking ownership of this land, again, echoing Wilson, very American thing, it really defuses that question of the major dramatic question of, is the party going to survive their trek? Is anyone going to die? Which no one, not even one person dies, right?
Wait, one person does die.
Someone dies. William dies.
No.
Does he not die? Wait, what?
No, he doesn't die.
Oh.
He's sick, but he doesn't die at the end.
I might have not even noticed. He's such a background character.
He collapses and is hyperventilating, but then they put him in the back of the...
I didn't notice he was back.
No, he was not back, but he's just in the back of the caravan at the end of the film.
Yeah, he's not dead, though. At least not yet.
Not yet.
But I started thinking about this in contrast to First Cow, which opens with a present-day Alia Shawkat discovering two skeletons, which it's implied could be the main characters from the past. I really like this idea that Kelly Reichardt's historical pictures are looking at this frontier life from the vantage point of the present and looking at those questions of who owns what from a very present day perspective with the knowledge of what will happen to the land and to the native peoples living on that land. I, like Wilson, come away thinking about this movie a lot. And its final seconds really raise its esteem for me.
I'm so glad we're talking about this. I think watching it again, I really feel was very rewarding. And I think it has really risen in my estimation of it to a large degree. And I already thought it was a good movie before, but I think I remember having that same feeling of like, at the end, I was like, what is this? And that was 4 years ago at this point. But now I think going back to it, and I think knowing that it would end on this huge question mark and coming into it with that knowledge really helped me to just be like, I'm just going to sit with this. Like, I don't have to think about what's going to happen. I just need to look at it. And I think knowing that that's what it's going to be and that's all it will be is just this question mark makes what it's trying to do much more apparent. And I think of a few things. Like, the only reason it's not my favorite Reichardt film is completely personal in terms of the kinds of stories I like. But I think of a current filmography, this is her most important movie because politically, but also that it speaks to the Western, which is also political. So as a text, from an academic standpoint, I think you cannot talk about the Western in America without talking about Meek's Cutoff. Because it stands in opposition to the entire genre, but also not in opposition to it, because it's also exactly the same as them. And the way that this film is not just about the Western, it's also kind of, I was thinking when I was watching this time, I was like, this is, I feel like, me stepping into a museum, like watching the period detail, watching them just do stuff, feels like I'm watching a museum installation as well. And so she's also capturing the time and giving you a sense of history, giving a sense of how we present history and also the opposition to how we present history as well. So I think it is so dense as a piece of filmmaking, even though it seems to do nothing as a piece of slow cinema, but its context really informs how important it is to its larger context. It reflects everything around it. And I think that makes it like an immense masterpiece of American cinema. It's almost like she buttoned up American Westerns with this movie that doesn't button up anything. And I'm like in awe of the way that she approaches this. And this is not even talking about how well made it is, how well acted it is, like talking about any of that stuff. It's just, its concept and its premise is just incredible. And I think the writing that she does, Raymond, and I think the conceptualization, the foresight they have, knowing that the context of what they're making shows the level of craft that they have and the level of thinking they have when they approach this subject that I think very few American filmmakers are doing. But in a way, because she is doing it in juxtaposition to them, you need them to also do the so-called normal thing so that you can see what she's doing.
Yeah.
She doesn't exist without them either. So it's such an interesting, like, you couldn't have everyone be Reichardt. Like, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? So it's like this yin and yang thing, which I find is so interesting to think about. Like, I can't want everyone to be Reichardt, but I'm so glad there's Reichardt in the midst of everyone else.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant, Ben. I like that a lot.
My mind's just cooking right now when I'm thinking about this. So I think I want to start talking about this film in the context of Westerns. Is there anything you guys want to talk about right now?
I do have some production context, but I think maybe we can... Okay, let's just briefly do it because I was traveling a lot today. I spent 4 hours on a train today, very much like a Reichardt film on the move. And trying to prep for this episode, I downloaded a few podcasts, 2 of which being our podcast.
Wait, what?
Trying to do a little refresher with episode 5 and episode 70, going back to what we talked about. And I also downloaded an episode of What the Fuck with Mark Maron, where he interviewed Reichardt after she made Showing Up. And I thought this was just going to give me a general idea of, I don't know, how she operates as a filmmaker. But before Maron interviewed her, he got super, super into her filmography and watched everything. So then basically him and Reichardt go and talk through all the films that she makes. And so I was like, oh, this is great. Now I can just like wait for the part where she talks about Meek's Cutoff and then type a bunch of notes. And it was fascinating. She begins by saying, I will never make a movie like this ever again. It was horrible. The heat was horrible. Bruce Greenwood, who plays Meek, nearly died of heat stroke.
Jeez,
and then it got really fucking cold. And then people got hypothermia. The oxen were horrible to work with because they would only walk forwards and they can't be moved backwards. And they're oxen. So sometimes they just ran through the set.
They didn't listen to the PA.
No, the oxen were divas. They were divas.
That's being locked down right now.
Because they were shooting in like the actual areas that Stephen Meek, who had brought around 200 wagons through this desert, went through, they were going through similar conditions. And they actually had found a gravestone of a girl out there that was presumably part of this parties. And found pieces of barrels from the original wagon train. But she regretted a lot of it. She said, I used up too much time. The actors were really angry at me. So by the end of it, I just wanted to be done. But it's so funny that we all are like, this ending is incredible because the ending didn't work.
What?
When they were shooting. So they had gone to the last day of shooting and John Raymond had written a script for her with the last scene in it where there was dialogue and something was happening. And Kelly Reichardt was so scared to shoot it because she had no clue what the ending of the movie meant. And she was so scared to shoot it because Zoe Kazan was going to say some lines and she was scared that Kazan was going to come up to her and say, I don't understand what's going on. And Kazan actually went up to her and was like, I don't understand what's going on. What do I do? And by that time, it was the last day of shooting. The men who had not gotten close-ups the entire film were so pissed off at Kelly Reichardt. It was just like, let's just get it done. Let's get it done. But Reichardt was trying to figure out, and I think they shot half the scene and then the sun went down and they went home and she had an unfinished film. She had a film with no ending.
Or so she thought.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She is Stephen Meek. She is Meek. Oh my God. She lived it.
Exactly.
Meek's Reichardt.
So what she did and what she had the budget for was she was able to get Michelle Williams and Rod Rondeau the guy who plays the Native American, come back, and she shot 2 shots with them because that's all she had. Both shots through the trees. The close-up of Emily watching the Native American man walk away and the shot of him walking away. And with that, she was able to finish the film.
That is
awesome, dude.
Wild.
If your actors hate you and you don't know what the fuck you just shot, you have made a masterpiece. Other film that was like this, Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
This film is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, it's a very, very slow Mad Max Fury Road.
Mad Meeks.
Mad Meeks?
Mad Meeks Fully Road. And the last thing was she said she wrote this in a time where they had just gotten out of Iraq. And she describes this as a story about a leader who we, I guess the American public, didn't know if he was full of shit. And he was taking these pioneers across the desert, and the pioneers were kept on saying, oh, he's a bullshitter. And they come across this Native American man and they don't speak the same language and they don't trust him, but they don't have a choice to trust him, but they also don't think that he's a human. And it's sort of an expression of this white entitlement in this post-Iraq America. And she made it for $1 million. That's it.
Oh my God.
Reichardt is an absolute king. That's all I got from that. And I was like, my God, she's really making the fucking movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like, she's making the bloody movie. Like, some people are just like walking through the movie set. Like, she's making the movie.
She's making the movie.
But she's never going to make one like this ever again.
Yeah. Or she might. I don't know. I feel like, who knows? I mean, this is challenging. Like, you compare to First Cow. At least First Cow, you have like tree cover. Like this, you're just in the bloody desert. Like, that's hard. Like he strokes real shit, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think she was just so tied to these locations. And it makes sense because the vistas look stunning. And in order to get, I guess, that historical accuracy as well, there's just that extra feeling of being there. I'm sure it worked wonders for the actors.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is interesting what you're comparing it to when you talk about the Iraq War, because this is going to sound like a tangent. But last night I was having a conversation, or rather listening to a conversation about wuxia. As like the East, or rather Chinese people like wuxia as like a history thing. They're drawn to it, even if wuxia is not in the current way that we think about things. Like notions of honor might not even exist in modern Chinese society anymore. If I think about that through the Western side, I think for Americans, the American Western is their wuxia. That is their past that they cling on to. It's how they think about everything. And in other episodes, I've talked about how the distinctively American film is about grifting and cheating. And I think that actually comes from the Western. Because I think of Meek as a grifter. And there are a lot of grifters in Westerns as well. Think about snake oil salesmen. These characters come from the Western. Businessmen that make money by cheating people, they come from the Western as well. People who settle and steal land, they're also grifters. So a lot of that American spirit comes from the spirit of the Western, and is not a nice spirit. It is a spirit of taking and of cheating. I'm starting to feel like the most American films are all Westerns. I feel like I can think of The Wolf of Wall Street as a Western, for example. So I don't know. It's like this thought that's in my head right now. Like the most American feeling films are Westerns, mostly, even if they don't look like one.
Ambition and personal gain are major themes in American cinema and American history. That vision America has of itself as the clever, ambitious, prosperous grifter is heavily self-mythologized, no matter what era of storytelling we're talking about. Something that I think about on a parallel track is the famous frontier paintings of the late 1800s, which are doing this exact kind of self-mythologizing. There's like the Frederick Remington cowboy paintings, which are, totally glamorous and glitzy. And by the way, in looking up more about Remington, I learned that his middle name is Sack Rider. Not a joke. Google it.
Sack Rider.
There's Bierstadt, which is definitely descended from the Hudson River Valley School of Painting that we talked about on our Old Joy episode, which is the classic one is like The Last of the Buffalo from 1888, which is a Native American man on horseback battling a buffalo, entirely fictionalized and ahistorical. And then the real famous one, which is this symbol of manifest destiny, this concept that it's America's fate to take over the West and increasingly move across the continent in order to own everything. This painting is American Progress from 1872 by John Gast. Look it up and you will see exactly what I'm talking about.
We'll link these paintings in our show notes.
I've seen this. This is an insane painting.
Insane, right? It's totally exactly what Wilson is saying about this white American exceptionalism. This idea that we are entitled to own and go where we want and treat people and things as property. That's exactly what is happening in Meek's Cutoff, but I think it is so brilliantly covered by that exact question that Wilson identified, which is you're trying to get to know these people, their bonds to each other, and you're wondering if they're going to survive. That's the thing that you're focused on for the majority of the runtime. And then when it comes to the end and you have this pensive, apparently improvised set of glance object shots, it's really uncomfortable and it's kind of confrontational, even as it is a question mark. It's such a brilliant ending. And I bring up those paintings because I think that Blauvelt's cinematography and the very precise framing that Reichardt uses is a part of this. It looks like they are composed sets of frontier paintings that charm you into the trap of beauty. You're looking at these things and saying, oh my gosh, this looks so beautiful. And then at the end, you're poked in the ribs with something else.
It definitely is presenting a vision of those paintings. And it is a remarkably beautiful film. And there are some dissolves that are like awe-inspiring. Like that first dissolve.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, whoa. Because that first dissolve is like a landscape.
Is it from the riverside to the very extreme wide shot of them walking through the desert?
And it looks like they're walking across the mountaintop at first.
Yes.
The one that, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of a different one. It's the one that it looks like they're walking through the sky.
Yes.
Like they're flying. Is that the same one?
Yeah, that's the one, but it starts with a riverbank.
Right. So that one, I was like, whoa. And then after seeing American Progress, it kind of makes me think about that.
Yeah.
A little bit. Because there's something fantastical about the idea of these settlers walking through the sky.
Yeah. Like it's destiny, it's fate, it is God endorsed.
Man, I think what is really interesting about the discourse around the film is this term that people will use when they talk about this film, which I actually don't like, which is that they like to call it a feminist Western.
Nah.
And I think that is a very reductive way of looking at what
Agreed.
Reichardt is doing. And is there a feminist bent to some of it? Yes. But I would say that generally speaking, it's just a female-centered story, but also not by much. And I think it's reductive because of not necessarily because it's not feminist, but because feminism kind of has a lot of comes with some baggage when you apply it to films. And for some reason, it feels like it's going to be some weird girl bossing film set in the West, but it's not at all that because the women are also equally horrible.
I think it counts as feminist in the sense that it is showing how the men who are posturing for more power and walking off and having these consequential conversations have a lot that they lord over the women and decide outcomes for the women and for their entire families.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right, though, Ben, that I think a really crucial moment in the movie is when Michelle Williams's Emily Tetherow goes over to the Native American man and offers to help fix his shoe, which has a small tear in it. And Zoe Kazan's character is cowering behind a rock saying, "What are you doing? Don't get close." And Emily says, "I want him to owe me something."
Yeah. I wrote that down as well.
That bit of, at first, what seems like kindness and a bid to connect, which I think you could make the argument that ultimately she comes around to feeling some connection to him, at least at its inception, is about opportunism and imposing this system of trade and owing onto the people who were here first. The idea that my system of values can allow me to give up something easy to get something more important from you. Ain't that America?
You just see that in varying degrees. You would argue that Emily's is the lightest version of that, and Meek's version of holding a shotgun to this man and threatening him is sort of the harshest version of that. But they are all doing a similar thing of imposing their structures on this man.
Real quick, I want to hear all of our impressions of Bruce Greenwood as Stephen Meek.
I can't do that.
Why don't you go first? Because you brought it up.
That seems fair.
I don't know where to start.
Give me a topic to talk about.
Cheese.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do Wallace talking about going to the moon to get cheese in the voice of Bruce Greenwood as Stephen Meek, okay?
I love this.
Okay. I see you take the rocket ship up to the sky and you're gonna get the cheese on the moon. You're gonna find a robot who wants to go skiing. I'm gonna name those mountains Jimmy's Mountains.
Oh, Jimmy's Mountains.
My beard is disgusting.
I'm not following this.
That's okay.
I was gonna let Eli do it on his own.
It's really good.
Thank you.
I'll try one line that he does in the movie at the
perfect.
end. I'm at your command.
I really can't do this.
Ben, go.
I have nothing to go off from. I just can't do it.
Why don't you do the thing where he's talking about fighting a bear?
Oh, he just keeps saying what? There's no bears here.
Stephen Meek confirmed
No bears,
Jafar
no
Panahi
bears.
fan.
Yeah. I had the same thought when I heard him say that.
Okay, this man, right? Stephen Meek is like well-traveled and like, I guess has been around a lot. But why does his accent sound like that? Why is Bruce Greenwood doing Bruce Greenwood? Like, what is going on?
I think it's part of this posturing and acting.
Yes.
He clearly doesn't know what he's doing out there, but he's putting on this folksy, fake accent, which does kind of go away when he gets angry and serious and sad.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're talking about Meek. I thought you were talking about Bruce Greenwood. Yes.
Oh,
gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Meek as a character. Bruce Greenwood doesn't actually talk like that.
I think what's interesting is that, yes, it is a film that is a little different from the regular Western, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Not like other Westerns.
And yes, it's woman-centered, but I would say that it draws a lot from similar types of stories from the Western.
Yeah.
Like this Meek character is in a lot of other Westerns. Recently, I read John Williams' Butcher's Crossing, which has a character like Meek in it. It's a guy who's like, I know the route to this place, and then everyone suffers. And he's just constantly telling people he knows exactly how things are going to go. And then there's no water. They're looking for water. It's the same thing. Yeah. And so that is a defined character trope in the Western. And I think it's not like the Westerns are all like the cowboys are great. The Westerns have always been deconstructing themselves constantly, right?
Yeah.
Even within like, say, classic Hollywood, they were already kind of fighting the idea of the Western at the time already.
Absolutely.
Right? And I'm sure you can find people talking about that. I saw someone reference The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is also about legends.
Even like The Searchers, it's there in almost every Western. My Darling Clementine, Stagecoach.
Yeah. So we're not saying that Reichardt's doing it a new thing necessarily, but I just think that the way that she just does it in this slightly different way, or maybe even you could say very different way, using this slow cinema perspective, using this open-ended ending, that it just kind of casts all that into a different light. And I think the lack of definition in that ending is very important because for Westerns, the ending is the most important thing. Like even something like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance buttons up his narrative in a way that's like, oh, this is about how legends are made and how things don't have to be true for the myths to be real. This one's just like, fuck that. Usually Westerns end in violence or they end with some kind of moralizing gesture. Even the revisionist ones, even the ones where like the white man is wrong, they have this kind of like moral encoding at the end. This one actually doesn't, because there is a chance that a Native American is swindling them. You don't know. Meek could be right. He could also be wrong. Emily's allegiances could be wrong, but they could also be right. Like, so there's really this sense of like, you don't know shit in this film.
Yeah.
Right. That I love. And there's this sense of like, the only way they'll get out of this is pure luck, which I think goes against the idea of the grifter knowing how they're going to get to the end, because usually it's a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
So I find that the film's context in relation to all these Westerns is just so intriguing to think about, because it's just has the elements, but it's just not doing the same thing with them.
Right. It's interesting because I really don't have this knowledge or this base knowledge of Westerns. Like I honestly just don't like Westerns. I don't like watching them.
Fair. A lot of them suck. And have bad politics.
And they're sort of like boring because I think you have similar plot structures. That's the thing. There's like, it goes through the same motions, but I feel like this doesn't go through any motions at all, which what drew me to this so much more than other Westerns.
Yeah. But it's because you know that Westerns are boring to you that this is so interesting, right? Like if this was your first Western, you'd be like, what? Like this cannot be your first Western. You'll be confused. You'll be like,
It might be. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the movies that you listed. I haven't seen Stagecoach.
You've seen some Western. You know. You have some popular idea of the Western in your subconscious. Okay, even not seeing a Western before, I think. So I don't know. I just think academically, this is so rich to think about. It is honestly a masterpiece of filmmaking in terms of how it talks about the film it is itself trying to be and also not be. Like, there's too much to talk about. Like, I guess because we talked about the feminism of it, and there's that Meek monologue about chaos and destruction, and like women being chaos and men being destruction, which I think really is a bit too pointed. And then it's like, oh wait, is this a film about that? Which I think it's not, but it is interesting.
Red herring.
Yeah, it's really not.
He's a bullshitter through and through.
It does put something interesting there, which is that destruction is something that's in the Western. Destruction is how you end the Western, generally speaking. And so maybe a sense of that Reichardt ends her film with not chaos in terms of what's happening is chaotic, but rather ambiguity is a sort of like entropy that she's ending her film with. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to tell you what to think. You just go think for yourself. And that's a form of chaos, I guess.
My favorite kind of ending.
Yeah. No, sometimes they can be unsatisfying, but I think Reichardt makes a very strong case for the kind of ending that she's choosing here.
Frustration in art tends to be productive, IMO.
Side note, did you guys grow up and watch the Harry Potter films?
Yes.
Okay, it was just so hard for me to like not be like, that's fucking Moaning Myrtle.
Moaning Myrtle.
I didn't think about that at all.
What? Did you not know? Did that not clock to you?
Did not clock for me.
There's something really specific about Shirley Henderson's voice, who plays Glory, that immediately brought me back to maybe like 8 years old and being like, I can't stand this character in the bathroom.
Sorry, Shirley. The thing I was thinking about was like, I was like, did Kazan and Dano meet on the set and get together? Like,
also, I was thinking
that's what I was thinking about.
I think they met on Ruby Sparks.
They were already together for Ruby Sparks, I'm pretty sure. But was that before or after this? I don't remember.
During the Ethan Hawke directed play Things We Want, which debuted off Broadway on November 7th, 2007. Oh.
Honestly, I'm like so props to these actors, because Kelly Reichardt also said in this interview that her actors take massive pay cuts to be in this film. Like Michelle Williams leads the way, and because she wants to work with Reichardt, she takes her lowest fee, and then everyone else follows suit. So thank you, actors like these who are supporting like a true singular American filmmaker doing her work and allow her to make movies.
I kind of wish like actors looked at her the same way they looked at like Wes Anderson. Like,
yeah, agreed.
You know how everyone's just clamoring to work with Wes Anderson? Like, why are they not clamoring to work with Reichardt? Because they're like, oh, I do the shitty movies so I can do the Wes Anderson movies. I'm like, yeah, you should also do the Reichardt movies.
Agreed.
And if they did, then probably it'll be easier for her to get financing and all that, right?
Probably.
Maybe.
And maybe A24 would respect her release window.
Yeah.
And put it in award season and run a campaign.
I'm saying this right now. Thank God it's like 40 minutes into the episode, but I'm fucking sick of A24's distribution strategy for a lot of these movies. I think they
Agreed.
need some restructuring or something needs to happen at this top tier studio because, okay, it is not as bad as Netflix. It's not as bad as all these streamers.
Sure.
But the way that they are buying up all these award movies and then just not doing them justice, like not doing these auteurs justice in releasing them theatrically, it's such a waste, right?
Agreed.
Like,
if you're confused listening to this, we're kind of referring to Showing Up and also First Cow.
yes.
They are both A24.
And also now Queer is not getting a wide theatrical release.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of movies. They pack their plate too full of these movies and I guess can't release them properly or give each movie the time of day to have audiences discover them.
But I don't know what's worse because they've talked about how their strategy now is moving towards larger, potentially blockbuster franchise material, right? They're doing Civil War. They're doing Y2K. They're doing this Iraq War movie that Alex Garland co-directed.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still buying up those smaller pictures. So I don't know if it's worse to have the A24 name on it, but be buried, or let it go to a different distribution company. Like, where's Sony Pictures Classics been? Neon's doing great work.
Yeah, love Neon. I think the issue is A24 has built such a big name for themselves that they want to hold on to that and do both. Like move into bigger budget sphere whilst also maintaining a hold of the lower budget auteur driven work. But I don't think it is entirely possible, especially considering award season where you strategically release movies in order to get them to have an awards play with voters. That messes up the general public's ability to see these movies.
I think the problem is that A24 might have the means to do all the movies and even do marketing for all the movies. But even if they did that, a single outfit has a cap in the amount of attention they can handle, which means that the smaller things that they have in their slate get drowned out by the things that they think will do better. Right. And so even if they equally marketed everything, not everything will equally be looked at by the audience. Unfortunately, I think there just isn't too many other outfits who have the kind of money to throw at things. And I think A24 is at least able to be like, oh, I have a few winners who are able to cover my losers in that sense.
But then don't even put the money into the losers.
Yeah. So I don't know how you're going to solve that because no one can just do Reichardt. You know what I mean? You can't just do that.
I know what they need to do. Overthrow capitalism.
Oh yeah. Love that. Okay, there's actually something that we can do, right? Like we can do as viewers of movies is buy tickets to films with distributors that are not just A24. Take Meek's Cutoff, for example. Meek's Cutoff was distributed in the US by Oscilloscope, which is a very small distribution company, has been operating for a long time and has a really great catalog of films that they release theatrically and on home video. So we can also put our money where our mouths are and try to support a film industry that is sort of dying right now. So if we try to support it and sort of get a little more competition going between these smaller distribution companies, maybe we can, I don't know, make this a healthier filmmaking and film going environment in the US. I'm also saying this as someone who doesn't live in the US, so it's also hilarious, but telling you Americans
because
to
this
go
is
do
very
that.
specifically a US thing, and like they're the ones holding the votes right now, which is like everything else, which sucks.
Right, true.
But I guess this is your new manifest destiny. God damn it. Go to the Reichardt film.
Yeah.
Pick your home team. Support your home team. Local filmmaking.
Anyway, I want to talk about how good this movie looks.
Yes. Christopher Bloveld, I bow down to you.
Yeah, he's got some hits, man, like in his work. He also did one of our favorites, May December, which looks completely different.
It does.
Oh, man.
Like,
yeah.
this is a man that knows what the movie needs, and he's not a man that applies style to movies. He figures out the style the movie needs. And one of the things I love about this film is the usage of light in extremely naturalistic ways. Is this thing completely lit by natural light? I have no idea, but maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Proper dark, and I love that. And she does that again in First Cow as well, which I don't think he shot. But this is really dark in those dark scenes, and they're just lit by lantern.
He did shoot First Cow.
Did he?
shot
First Cow, okay, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I really like that. And that realism really works. And also, in that sense, you don't need to really see things to really understand things sometimes. And especially in a film shot in the freaking desert, you know when the light's fake. So I think the choice to not do stuff, meaning not really light, is such a good choice. Like what you don't do is so important. And another thing that they do is that in day scenes, so the women are all wearing these bonnets, which shade their face, which means they're not well lit. In a commercial, what they'll do is they will reflect light into their faces so they'll get lit, so that they can balance the background that's lit and the face that's not lit. They didn't do any of that shit, right? Faces are just dark in this, you know what I mean? That you just can't see anything. Yeah, so when they're constantly just backlit by like extremely bright backgrounds, but in here they're just not lighting it. So that sense of realism is so strong in this. It feels like that museum thing I'm talking about. I'm like, wow, this is like some time traveling shit that we're doing right here.
Yeah. And I love a lot of the camera movements here. Like some stuff that he's using Steadicam for that feels a little like woozy.
Yeah.
Really works when the band is moving, like the wagons are moving and he's following with them. And just some specific shots that are so well framed and shaped. I'm thinking about one of the shots with Emily and Solomon as they are trying to lighten the load in their carriage. So it cuts from outside of the carriage as she starts throwing a clock outside, and then it cuts into the carriage where you have a sort of frame of the back door of the carriage as she's throwing things back. And as the carriage moves forward, you see like a chair in the background, perfectly framed within that opening in the back of the carriage. And God knows if that was just lucky that they managed to figure out a path for the horse to go to show it like that, or it was all planned. But I was really impressed by a lot of the specific framing and camera moves that Bloveld uses here.
And I think like some of the choices, like we talk a bit about it's being film-centered, and a lot of that comes from that glance object editing, right? Like what the women are looking at is so important in this. We usually see the men in wide shots because the men are being looked at by the women from a little far away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. One of the key scenes is when they find the lake finally, and then all three women are just watching the men discuss their fate over there. And that's just like a wide shot. And then it keeps cutting to the close-ups of the women, but then to the wide shots of the men. And it shows you that you're just looking and kind of watching other people decide where they're going, which is horrible. Not that they know any better, but it's kind of like they don't have any control. And a shot that I really liked was when Solomon and Meek run off to go capture the Native American. And then they're just like waiting for them to come back. And then they finally spot them in the distance. And you see two horses. It is extra freaking wide.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible shot. Right? It's just like a painting. And then there's two horses and you're like, what the heck is that? And you're like, okay, I see two horses coming back. and then cuts back to that wide shot, and then you're like, oh, it looks like there are three figures, but you're not sure.
Right.
And it like slowly reveals itself to be, oh, okay, they have captured this Native American person and they're like walking him back. There's that piece of that, like slowly discovering that, just same way that they are also kind of watching it come to them because they don't know what they're seeing either, right? Probably even less so than we are seeing it. And rather than it being a surprise, it's this slow realization of what's coming.
Yeah, it's sort of like a de-dramatization of a moment that would be played up in a classic Western.
Totally.
Like I'm imagining like a shot where they throw the man across the screen and that's how you find out, oh, he's here. But no, it's like, let's just slowly watch them come here and like, what, and then just watch these people just look at it like quizzically and like, they have no idea what they're looking at. And so I think it really feels like you're there. Like it feels very immersive.
In that interview that Kelly Reichardt and John Raymond did, Reichardt is asked the question, why did you choose 4-3? Which is a very 2010 question, right? Like everyone's doing 4-3 now again.
Yeah, something I would ask.
She answers by saying that a widescreen view would allow them to see, especially in this lateral movement of the caravan, the past where they're coming from and the future where they're headed. But the more limited, close to square shaped frame really keeps you in the moment with them, to your point, Ben.
For me, when I first watched it, my immediate reaction to the Academy ratio is that it matches the women's bonnets. The way that they look at the world.
It frames their faces.
Yeah, because literally
like
they do not see in widescreen, they see in box. That's how they see. Yeah.
They see in letterboxed.
Yeah, they're letterboxed. Yeah. So, I mean, she's not talked about it, but it was like the immediate thing because like, I think our current idea of the Western is more filtered through, I guess, the Sergio Leone type Westerns, which are all in extra widescreen. But of course, older Westerns were all in Academy ratio. Like we're talking about The Searchers, references we talked about. Those are Liberty Valance is, and a lot of older Westerns are obviously in Academy ratio because that was the only ratio that they had. But even so, I would say that this still feels like an unexpected choice in a sense, but also makes perfect sense, right? It calls back to older Western ratios, but it also chooses to kind of truncate the landscape. And in a sense, it's less about what's on the periphery of your vision and more about what's in front of you.
Right.
Because what's more important in the shots isn't how wide the landscape is, but rather what is in the landscape in the distance, which the Academy ratio is more focused on, like what is there in the background, which is what I was talking about with those like figures coming from the distance. So, I mean, honestly, just a good choice, like a very good choice. Yeah, all around.
And it's an entirely different purpose of using the Academy ratio. And using the Academy ratio here serves an entirely different purpose than it does in First Cow.
Yeah.
Those feel like very different deployments.
Right.
I find myself looking up more in First Cow than I do here.
Remind me if I'm wrong, does First Cow employ much close-ups? But I can't remember.
I can think of some close-ups, yeah.
More than this film does.
You get a lot more of Cookie's emotion than you would in Meek's Cutoff.
Yeah.
Like, I think that one uses the 4:3 well for those close-ups. And I love close-ups in 4:3. They're the best frame for close-ups for me, to me anyway. And this does have close-ups. And I think that ending close-up of Michelle Williams is like, oof.
Yeah.
That's not even that close, though.
But she's holding back until that ending shot. And it's not that close, but you see her framed by these tree branches in such a beautiful way that draws your eye directly to her face.
Because we don't have that much foreground obstruction in the film. And then not that many close-ups as well. To have a close-up with that foreground obstruction that is so beautiful and also a bit softer than I think any of the other shots.
Yeah.
That it really pulls you into that ending lyricism in a way that is just like I don't know, it's just beautiful and feels like impossible to me. I don't know. It's like, how did she figure out that this would work in the way that it works?
I feel like it sounds different in that moment too. Like it is a break from, I know that we're talking about how it is literally a break from when they were filming, but it feels like a different place, different space.
Yeah. The film is slow, but then when it picks up some pace, like when they're lowering the wagons down that steep grade.
I love how that's picking up the pace, and it's still like they're letting it go at a glacial.
Glacial, but then when it snaps, that shit goes. Like it goes pop, pop, pop. And that's like the most excitement you get in this film. And it's amazing. You're like suddenly like, oh my God, things are happening.
I bet some people who were sleeping in the theater were like, whoa, what's happening?
Oh, the movie started. How much more we got? 20 minutes.
Okay, I could say this like 50 minutes of the episode because my mom's not listening, but I watched this with her and she fell asleep. Like 5 minutes in, and she woke up at the end and she was like, it's beautiful. I love you, Mom.
That's okay. She can be sleeping in a wagon. It's the same experience.
Exactly.
I am of the opinion that movies that you can sleep in, I don't think that's sacrilegious. I think that's honoring the movie on a certain level.
It's like what Apichatpong, Weerasethakul, and Kiarostami said.
Yeah.
Especially for something atmospheric, right? Like where it's about, literally this one's also about a journey, where it's just about building a sense of moving. And also because this has the narrative information is really irrelevant to this. And sometimes you can barely hear what people are saying.
Yeah.
And it's pointedly so sometimes, right? Like when they're listening to the men discuss, but they can't hear them.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much intelligent details in this.
Yeah. It's like just the sound editing in that scene. Yeah.
Yeah. This is my third 5-star movie from Kelly Reichardt. Not to boil it down to ratings, but it's a third perfect movie. She is easily one of my top directors right now.
Definitely.
Wow. Let her direct more.
She has one coming. She got one cooking.
Every year.
With Josh O'Connor doing an art heist.
Oh, yeah. What is this? Night Moves 2? Night Moves 2?
It's called The Mastermind.
Night Tubes.
I haven't seen that one yet, but the way that she was talking about it seemed very interesting.
I didn't like that, but I should rewatch it. I didn't revisit it when I went back into Reichardt back in 2020. But I also have that same feeling of like, oh, I want her to make a movie every year, but also maybe her movies are better because she doesn't do that.
It's like a slow cook. She also teaches two classes.
Yeah.
She teaches one semester a year. That's what she says. And one class seems so interesting. Okay, I forgot what the name of it was, but what she does is she gives the class a whole film, and she gives each student like 10 minutes to recreate, and then they will piece it together at the end of the semester, and they will screen the whole feature film recreated in 10-minute segments by each student.
That's cute.
What films does she pick?
I don't know. She didn't say. I was waiting for her to say.
I'm so curious. I guess my question is like, who are the people inspired by Reichardt? In America, at least. Considering she's a professor, right? Like you think about Kurosawa. Kurosawa teaches so many people who then talk about how Kurosawa was their mentor. Who are Reichardt's mentees? Where are they?
Unable to fund their features, obviously.
Dang.
You know? Like I'm really curious about, where does she teach again? I forgot.
Bard, I think.
Bard. Oh, interesting. Because she is, like you said, Wilson, like really singular in the current American filmmaking landscape.
Yes.
Like really. Yeah, like there really is no other person like even similar to Reichardt, or even like starting to do something that Reichardt is doing. Like maybe somebody that has done 1 or 2 features, but I can't think of it. Maybe like Annie Baker.
I haven't seen it yet.
Janet Planet.
Really good. Great movie.
From the images, it feels maybe like that. But she made Wendy and Lucy for $100K. So I don't know if that's possible today. Like, and that's her first feature that got her starting.
I think it's possible, actually.
Yeah.
Even today, even with inflation, I still think it's possible, but you just need to find the right people. If you do it like Old Joy with like nothing, nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy and Lucy, the big problem is, I guess, locations and feeding people. But if you really strip it down, like I think it's still possible, but it's really difficult because yes, you want people to work with you for less, but also people need to put food on the table, which not everything can be favored. So there is the reality of that. So I think it's really quite difficult. It's tricky. And obviously the market now is not good. Not even for like mainstream movies. So like I can't imagine the indie.
Yeah, once it's done, like who's gonna pick it up? It's tough.
At least she's still making them. Thank you for listening to this episode of Deep Cut. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating because that helps others discover the show. And a great way to support us is to leave a review for our show on Apple Podcasts or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify if you have thoughts about the movie we just talked about. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts so you know when our next episode drops. You can keep up with Deep Cut on Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd at Deep Cut Pod and TikTok at Deep Cut Pod_film. And you can also join us to talk about more movies on our Discord server. We also have a Patreon if you want to support us. We deeply appreciate it. You can click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find our Patreon, Discord, and all the other socials we mentioned here. Special mention to our Patreon Deep Cut Pick supporter, Leah Lai. Thank you for your support. Deep Cut is hosted and produced by us, Wilson Lai, Benjamin Yap, and Eli Sands. And our cover art is designed by Justina Yam. And our theme song is composed by Eli Sands.
I'm Wilson.
I'm Ben.
I'm Eli. Take care, and we're looking forward to talk about more movies with you next time.
Whoa. All right.